Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. And what is this video about? Well, I'm going to make some drum sounds and some drum beats, but the source of those drum sounds and drum beats are going to be drones that I'm going to make in Ableton right in front of your eyes using only Ableton stock plugins. Just going to load a few in and set them to make noise and record like little bits of it, and then just sort of shrink them down to drum sounds. This is something of a follow-up to both my complex drum programming video, which I did about a month ago, and before that, my video about ADSR envelopes, which I'll be using quite a lot in this video. And if you haven't seen those videos, go and watch them because they are two very interesting things, which link to this kind of idea that when doing drums in kind of the synthesized domain, you know, electronic music, I kind of think that drum sounds should have a little bit more airtime and should be a little bit more pliable and be seen of as something that you can kind of change and shift and morph and skew dynamically, whether it's during a track or during a performance, compared to something like the acoustic drum kit, which, whilst I like very much, is kind of quite static tonally. Of course, there's plenty of drummers who might disagree and say that there's loads of sounds you can get out of a single snare drum. And I agree. I like acoustic drums. I have a drum kit and I sometimes like to play on it, but I'm also really into the synth drums too. So what I'm going to do with this is kind of create a palette of drum sounds that can kind of morph and evolve and be modulated and be played with, rather than just being kind of left running to, you know, take care of the rhythm section. They are themselves their own little kind of sonic playground. Right, so let's get started. First of all, I have one audio track and I'm going to set the audio in to resampling because I'm going to do a lot of resampling. Just to be safe, I've put a limiter on the master track so we don't blow up the entire universe. And I'm going to start with a snare drum, and I'm basically just going to create some noise, just some drony noise that I think has sonic characteristics of the types of drum sounds or percussion sounds that I want to use. The echo is a great place to start for this because it's got this fantastic noise generator here, which is so rich. But first of all, I just need to do a few things. I'm going to turn the delay to milliseconds, turn it right down, turn the feedback right down so there's no delay. And I'm going to get a limiter. I'm going to use another limiter. Let's just bring in all the limiters. Put that one there so that just to make sure, just keep everything safe. Turn the dry wet all the way up. And let's turn on the noise and turn up the amount. Yes. Love that. And then there's this morph thing here. Oh. So there's actually a bit of hum there. There's a tiny little bit of hum there. It's like, there's so much going on here. Around about 60, it can get quite rich in the low end. So I'm going to use that for a snare. I'm going to take my LFO here and I'm going to map that to the morph. Let's set the shape to random and let's smooth those randoms out so it's just kind of wibbling about, and I'll just increase the rate a little bit, and let's increase the amount on the noise. Yeah. Okay, so one thing that we can do to make it a little bit more snarey is to just add more noise on top, and I'm going to use the vocoder for that. I'm going to run the noise from the echo into the vocoder, which is using its own internal noise generator as the carrier, which will then get vocoded with the incoming signal, which is the noise here. So we get this. I mean, this already sounds interesting. It's got an aquatic thing about it, or maybe it's some sort of strange sea monster having its lunch, maybe. If we increase the release, hit this kind of thing with a bit of attack, we can take some of those sort of blips out. Let's maybe decrease the band. Oh my goodness me. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So we've got a noisy drone there. We can change the formant a little bit. Maybe I'll get another LFO. And I'll map that to the formant. Okay, this is sounding pretty good. All right, let's resample it. Actually, yeah, let's just call that resample. And actually, I really need it to be this shade of blue. I've gotten used to it now. Okay, let's resample that. I'm going to resample 8 bars or, yeah, 8 bars might be enough. Oh, I've done more than 8 bars. It doesn't matter. Okay, I think we've got everything we needed there. All right, cool. So I'm just going to group all of those so I can quickly switch them off. Okay, so I might just dump that onto another track. I might just call that track snare generator. So I'm basically kind of just going to use stock effects to generate some sounds. We can turn them on and off as we want like that. For if we want to have another go later on. Okay, so let's do a kind of kick drum thing now. So yeah, that was obviously a very noisy sample. There's a melodic drone to that, which is fine, and there's also just lots of sizzle, and you'll see later on when we see how we're going to turn these into drums. Okay, so I really like the fact that you can sort of chuck a load, you can create an audio channel, set it to resample, chuck some stuff on it, and then resample it back onto its own channel. I really like that. Okay, let's do the same thing again, but for this time we're going to make more of a kick drum sound. I'm going to use the same noise generator from the echo again, turn all this off, turn this down, turn this down, turn this down. Okay, turn up the amount again, and okay, I'm going to, yeah, let's repeat the process actually. Let's just map to the morph. Turn the smoothing. That sounds cool. I want it all smoothed out like that. Okay. Now, let's get another limiter in. Put another limiter. Limiters is important. Let's get the auto filter now and filter that right down. Yeah. Rumble. Okay, let's get another LFO. It's LFO madness today on the Ned Rush YouTube channel. Let's map that to the... Oh no, actually we don't need that. We can just use the LFO on the auto filter. So just a tiny little bit of modulation just to make it kind of go a bit rumbly like that. Okay, that's sounding good. And I think I might pull in the dynamic tube. I've been getting quite into the dynamic tube recently. Set the bias to about 50... 54, turn the drive up, pull the dry wet down. Can really make low end kind of squirt. Make squirty low end. Okay. Yeah, it's just a bit of grunge. Okay, do I want to compress that anymore? I think might be. We could maybe let's put the OTT on it. Where is that? Where is that? It's here. Okay, let's put that. Okay, that's a bit too much. Just to turn the amount down. Okay, that'll do. Resample. Resample it. Go. Oh yeah. You get those little sort of harmonic blips. Yeah. Okay, that'll do. Okay, let's do the same thing again. Let's get all that junk, group it all, and turn it off. Minimize that, and then again I'll create another track here and I'll call this track kick gen. I mean really it's just a low end drone really, and then I'm gonna dump all of that onto that track so I can save that, use it again later if I want. Now hi-hats are kind of quite easy, it's just white noise, but I was thinking like, what about ride cymbals? Ride cymbals are kind of like really one of the hardest things to synthesize because they're so rich in harmonics. Like there's nothing better than a ride cymbal. Like there's so much going on with the ride cymbal. And if you don't have any ride cymbal samples, they can be quite challenging to synthesize. I've tried it with using like multiple versions of operator, all kind of modulators, modulating oscillators at varying frequencies polyphonically, and that can come out quite good. But on this occasion, I'm just going to stick with the droney noise drone out idea. So again, I'm going to pull in the echo, turn the delay time right up and the feedback down, turn the dry wet up, go to the character, turn the noise on. Link an LFO to the morph just to make it wibble and blibble about. Map that to the morph. Set it to random. Turn the smooth up. Set the rate to just something like this. So it's just kind of wibbling about. Pull in a limiter. It's a lot of the same sort of processes, but they've all got different results. And I'm going to try... I have to keep turning everything down because nothing's on the transport. I'm going to try and use the shifter, the new shifter that's in the new version of Live 11, which is very interesting, which does pitch shifting, frequency shifting, and ring modulation, but also has a delay network built into some of the pitch shifting, so we can get these classic, weird kind of 1980s eventide delay type things. And I'm going to use that to kind of, yeah, just make it more weird. So I'm going to turn the delay on, set it to milliseconds, turn that down to quite low. And let's have a listen. Turn the feedback up. And then as we adjust the fine tuning, we can get these like very weird pitch shifting. Huge amount of low end there. Let's maybe get rid of that now. High pass filter will take care of that. Okay, and I want another LFO here to modulate the fine on the shifter here. Random with the smooth up. Turn the window size down a bit. Okay, so you're probably thinking that doesn't sound like a ride cymbal at all, but wait until we introduce the spectral time, which is just going to basically smear all of those sounds into a kind of mushy cloud. I'm just going to turn the delay off. I'm going to set this to re-trigger and set it to sync. Set it to something like this. Turn the freeze on, and I'm going to use the fade in, fade out thing, whatever that is, whatever it's called. Let's see what that is. Turn the dry wet up. Okay, you're probably still thinking that doesn't sound like a ride cymbal, but have you ever got underneath a ride cymbal with a microphone and some headphones? That's what it sounds like. But what's good about this is that it's evolving. It's shifting its character, as it kind of exists, which is going to make for interesting modulated drums later on when we chuck them in samplers. Okay. I think maybe I would also like to put a little bit of corpus on there to give it a little bit more ring. So I'll put corpus on there. I'll go with the... What did I do in rehearsal? Was it marimba? Let's try marimba. Yeah. That's it. That's kind of what I wanted. I could maybe go a little lower or higher in pitch. Okay, resample now. Gosh, that was a little bit scary. I'm starting to regret dropping that acid before shooting this video. Right, I let that go for a little bit longer because sonically it was a little bit more exciting than the low end and the snarey thing that we did. Anyway, let's do the same thing again. Let's group that so we can just turn them off. And then I'll just stick that on another track that I'll just call Ride Gen or Symbols, generic symbols or whatever. And then I'm just going to stick that on there. I'm going to take those tracks, squish them down like that. Okay, so we've got these samples now. We've got one for snare sound, one for a kick drum sound and one for a sort of ride cymbal sound. Let's get to that right now. Let's get a drum rack. Let's stick a drum rack in here. And let's get sampler in, my old friend sampler. Oh, yeah, in there. I'll have one for the kick, one for the snare, and one for the ride. And I might just give them some names now. Kick, snare, and ride. Okay, kick, snare, and ride. That's quite a good album name. Right, so let's start with the kick, which I believe was the second one yet. So I'm just going to drop that into the sampler here, create a new clip, and I'll just start with something like this. See what we get. Okay. It's a little quiet. Let's pull the volume up here. Okay, I'm going to turn the filter off. I don't really want that. Okay, so this is when the envelopes are really going to come into play here, because essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take those drones and sort of shrink them down to little percussive blips that might sound like drums. I hope they do. Otherwise, this is going to be very embarrassing. So I've already pulled down the sustain and the decay. Should we normalize this? Why not? Okay. I'm going to set the voices to 1. Leave the retrigger on. Okay, that's fine. Let's do the same with the snare. Put a little snare thing in here. Yeah. I don't want to be at 120. It's Friday. Let's go to 140. Okay. I'm going to repeat similar processes here. Turn the volume up and maybe normalize the volumes. Get it all nice and loud. Okay, that's good. And then again, I'm going to just pull down the sustain. And really, I'm only going to work with the decay and the release. Again, I'm going to have one voice. We'll leave retrigger on. Okay, so you might be thinking, that's not very interesting. Where's this going? Okay, well, so I'm going to use some of the like MIDI features that are now in Live 11, particularly the chants and what we can do with the velocity. So I will maybe draw in like a couple more notes here. Okay, but some of these I'm going to give them quite a low chance. So these ones here, I'm going to hold shift and select the... Oh, why didn't that work? Hold shift. There we go. Hold shift and select those ones that I want and just pull down the chance a little bit, maybe to something like 40%. So they're not happening all the time, but they happen intermittently. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select them all, turn the velocity all the way down for all of them and increase the velocity range so that they will generate random velocities on each new MIDI note, which is something I like very much. But we won't hear it because we haven't assigned any velocity to anything. So why am I going to do that? Well, it's because I'm a big fan of this time to velocity thing on the envelopes in many of Ableton's instruments, but for sampler, it's absolutely my favorite thing. And basically what that means is that depending on the velocity of the incoming note, that will affect the time of the envelope. So for this very kind of like free-form, glitchy, modulated, jazzy IDM drum sound that I like to play around with, that could prove quite interesting. Some notes, or rather drum hits, will be very short. Some will be like very large, and we're going to explore that a little bit later and maybe turn it into like a performative aspect. Is that a word? Performative? It is now if it's not. So as I start to change the time to velocity, say on this snare to like -50, you can hear how the sounds kind of have a different lifespan. Let's do the same for the kick. So to me, that's kind of exciting. I find that kind of stuff exciting. I think drums should have a little bit more freedom to be, you know, explored and opened up and closed and all this kind of stuff. So where else was I going to go with this? Well, we've got these like huge, long recordings here of sounds. How can we use that? Well, we can actually jump around the start position of the sound using an LFO. So I'm going to go to the modulation tab, turn LFO 2 on, go to the type of waveform and choose this random sample and hold thing. Set the frequency really low, leave the retrigger on and assign it to the sample offset. And basically that means that on each new MIDI note, it's going to jump to a different position in the sample, which I like very much. So I've done that to the kick drum. Let's have a listen. Okay, it might sound a little bit lame right now, but we're going to beef it up later. It just kind of gives, I think it just gives drums a bit more of a voice, you know. Let's do the same thing for the snare. All right, gonna have a little guzzle of beer. Okay, they are still a little bit noisy. Whilst they are a little bit blippy, they are still quite noisy. We maybe need to do something more to them to make them sound more percussive. There's a couple of ways that we can do that. Let's start with the snare. The first thing that we can do is we can apply some pitch envelope, a very quick, short, sharp, snappy pitch envelope, to just give it a little bit of that at the start. So let's solo the snare. Let's dial up the amount. Okay, that's too slow. It needs to be really short. Okay. Let's increase the release a little bit. Okay. We could maybe even use this oscillator. This is very interesting. So Sampler actually has its own internal sort of synthesizer engine, but it's really only used as a modulation source. So we've got all these different types of waveforms going on in here, including noise, but you can't hear them. They get applied to the sample as a modulation source. It's really cool. So I'm actually just going to stick with sine, and I'm going to increase the volume, and you'll hear how it starts to modulate it. Yeah, but we don't want that. We want it to be really short. So you can hear how it's just adding a little bit of punch at the start. That's fine. Let's do the same for the kick drum. Not too much amount, maybe about 15. Do the same thing here. Just adds a little bit of attack at the start. Or a bit of, it kind of pushes the transients. And we can change around with the transposition here if we want. Let's go up 12. No, I think I'll go back to 0. Okay, we'll beef it up in a little while. Let's think about what we can do with the ride. So again, I was going to do the same sort of thing with the ride. Let's get the let's drop the sample in there, and again, I'm just going to pen in a load of notes here, select them all, turn the chance down to about 45, turn the velocity all the way down, and then increase the velocity range so we get some random velocities. So yeah, again, as you can see, it's just triggering at the start, but we've got all of this stuff to play with. So I'm going to, actually first I'm going to address the envelope. So I'm going to turn the filter off, don't want that. I'm going to pull the envelope all the way down, increase the release. On this occasion, I'm going to turn the retrigger off, but have multiple voices so that the envelopes get their chance to, you know, take their course before they get cut off by a new note. Okay, I say a ride cymbal can just make the world of difference, can't it? Okay, so let's go to the modulation section. I'm going to do the same thing again. Turn LFO2 on, turn on the sample and hold LFO, set the frequency to the lowest possible. Turn the retrigger is on, and then assign that to the sample offset. So we're going to jump around the sound whilst it's being triggered. Okay. Again, let's use the time to velocity thing. Let's set this to -50. Again, we could apply the same sort of pitch modulation. What did I say? About 15%, really short decay time. And then I'll use the oscillator here as well. You could also maybe apply a bit of distortion, maybe just to make those transients a little bit more in your face. But what I'm going to do is drum bus it like a complete fool. Let's put that on there. Okay, and this is going to be very loud. You have been warned. We could maybe transpose that ride cymbal up. Let's go up an octave. Maybe even higher. Okay, so the one thing that I was thinking about doing in terms of making this a little bit more performative, whether you want to jam with it in a song or use it live, is that I was going to map the decay and release for all of these samplers to a single macro. So I'm going to do that right now. Let's go to decay on here and release on here to macro 1. Let's go to the snare, do the same thing. Blah, 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 and then this one, and I think, and then maybe we could potentially map the time to velocity as well. So we've got some control over that. Why don't we just do that anyway? Let's map that to macro 2 for you, macro 2 for you, and macro 2 for you. So that basically means that we can have some control here. So they're all set to -50 on here, but we've got some control over the envelope. So we can pull them right down to little tiny blips. Or we can open it right up and it's just drone. Maybe I could map the transposition as well. Let's map the transposition for the kick. Let's do it on 5 for the kick. Let's do it on 6 for the snare. And let's do it on 7 for the ride. And we'll rename these kick pitch, snare pitch, ride pitch. Let's rename these ones as well. Let's just call this one decay. And let's call this one decay mod. Okay. Let's chuck some beat repeaters in there, just make it a little bit even more glitchy than it probably even should be. Let's set the onset to 4/16. Let's set the grid to 1/3 here, the gate to about there, set the chance to about 15, and then I'll maybe have another one here, set the onset to 12/16, the gate to, oh, hang on, let's set that to 1/6. Yeah, okay, let's just a bit of variety. Maybe one more. We'll set this one to 16ths. We'll turn the decay down so it kind of does a little roll. Drone. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I think that'll do. So there you go. That was a little idea I had earlier, which I thought I would share with you all. I'm now going to go and wrap this up and go and put it on my Patreon, where if you'd like to support me, you can download this set plus many, many, many more since before the dawn of time. That's not true. And also there's some very interesting community things going on there, and there's also a Discord that you can join where you can hang out and chat with other people, and we'll all be hobnobbing around on there in the coming months. So there you go. Use some stock effects to create weird drones and then chuck them in samplers and turn them into drums. Hope you have a nice time. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope everything is good with you. I hope that we get through this. Okay, see you next time. Bye.